Jesus isn't in the middle of teaching. He's in a home right now. He's in somebody's house. And while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." Jesus replied to him, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." And God add his blessing to the reading of this word. I can't read this story in the Bible without thinking back to the time when I was a teenager. And I remember I was in the kitchen, and I was talking on the telephone. That's something teenagers used to do. They used to pick up telephones and talk to each other on them. I've never seen my daughter talk to a friend on the telephone. I saw her on the telephone with her grandma the other day. It just looked so weird with her actually speaking to somebody on the telephone. But I was on it, and I remember I was talking to a friend of mine. I don't remember what we were talking about, but my mom was trying to get my attention, trying to tell me something or get me to get off the phone. And I remember saying something really short and smart-alecky and disrespectful to her. Yeah, just really, and angry. I had anger to that too. And I said it right as my father was walking by. And I remember I was on the phone. It was actually connected to the wall. Yeah, way back in time. And I was telling you, and I was standing there, and my father stopped, and he turned that to me, and he sat there, glaring at me, waiting for me to get off the phone. And when I did get off the phone after trying to extend that conversation as long as I possibly could, he let me have it. Don't talk to your mom that way. Don't be so disrespectful. Don't ever be disrespectful to your mother. And I tell you, that stuck with me. I still remember it after all these years. And I think most of us have a story like that in our past as well. A story about how we need to be respectful toward our families, especially toward our parents. Good grief, there's a whole commandment about it, right? Be respectful. Honor your father. Honor your mother. And that's why it's so hard for a lot of Christians to read this story. Because Jesus seems like he's being pretty hard on his family here. And especially not just his family, it's not just his brothers. That's one thing. You see brothers come and you blow them off. That's one thing. But your mom. And it's Mary. And we know, we can imagine, actually we know from reading the Gospel of John, that Mary's just there because she's worried about him. His brothers and sisters are there because they're worried about him. They want to talk to him. They want to speak to him. They want to see if he's okay. They have the very best intentions at heart. And so it makes it even harder for us to hear this story about Jesus treating his family in this way. And we think, oh, I don't like this. Jesus is one that I follow. I'm his student. I'm his disciple. And he's treating his family with such little respect. And it's easy to start thinking that what Jesus is doing here is dragging family down. Saying family isn't important. It's easy to see it that way. My first reaction to it is that. It's sort of visceral reaction, oh, treating your family that way. But actually, it wasn't that at all. And at least that's not the point. The real point here, the thing we need to carry away with us from this story, is not dragging the family down. It is lifting the community of faith up. Jesus and his community of faith. He's talking about his disciples here. Remember, he pointed to his disciples and said, these are my brothers and sister and mother. And then now, when he says disciple, one thing Jesus is saying here, he's not talking about the 12. They were disciples, but usually he refers to them as apostles. When he's talking about his disciples, he's talking about all those who are following him. All of us today. That's why we call ourselves disciples, not just the 12. Everyone who follows Jesus. Everyone who follows Jesus is his disciple. So here he is. He's saying, this is my family. And he's lifting up that group. He's telling us that actually a very important lesson today, and one I think is very important to us here today, is that this place, this group, it needs to be, it's not a family. It's not a family, but it needs to be like a family. Like a family. So we look and we think about family, we think about some of the very best things in family. What are some of the very best things? Interactive here. I want you to answer, what are some of the things, the very best things about family? You can count on them. That's right. They have your back. You trust them. There's that element of trust to family. Absolutely. I think that's one of the very best things. And when we live up to being a good family member, others can count on us, right? And we can count on them. Absolutely. Somebody else had an answer.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. That's right. No matter how you mess up, your family's still going to love you. They may not like you. They may not want to be with you. But there is this idea of loving. Loving, absolutely. Love is a part of it, too. Trust and love, there's two. What else? We can name a few more. Safety, security. Absolutely, Jeremy. Safety and security, that feeling of being someplace where you're not going to, I don't know, where you're secure. I mean, and yeah, it's not that it's going to always be easy with family or maybe the relationships are always going to be easy, but you are secure because people love you unconditionally, right? And they have your back. So all these things feed into each other. Anybody else have one? It's the best things about family. Yeah, well, I think that's a good list. That's all right. Safety and security, love, care, concern, all of these very best things. And what we're seeing here today in this story is Jesus saying, that's what the community of faith needs to be like. That's what it needs to be like. And actually, he says it in another way here. He says, whoever does the will of God, whoever does the will of God is my brother and my sister. See, it's not just having these feelings, it is acting them out. Is expressing them, showing them to one another, and showing them to the world as well. That's something that makes us family, but you know, it's not really a list of things we can do. Ultimately, what makes us a family? What draws us together, us as a community of faith, into a family of faith? And so let's just say, instead of talking about a family, let's just use a word that's, I think, just as powerful. Christian community. A Christian community. I think one of our goals here, not only as a whole church, but here specifically as a worship service, is to build a Christian community. To continue to build one, right? It's an ongoing process. We are never finally there. We are always building and building and building onto this Christian community and hopefully feeling closer and closer and hopefully making it easier and easier for others who are strangers here and don't know us all to come in and to be able to feel that and to sense it when they come in. So it's not something you have to spend 6 years here, or 9 years here, or 2 months, or 5 months to feel. It's something maybe right away you can sense, right when you step through the door. How do we do that? How do we grow this sense of community? I believe we have it here. I look around and see people I love in this place. I see people that I care about, people that I trust. And how do we grow that? How do we help others to see it as well? And how do we feel it more and more as we go along? Well, one nice thing, I suppose, is really it's not something we need to do. Because we can't. We cannot do it ourselves. It's not a list of things we can do, and then all of a sudden we feel this sense of family. We feel this community built around us because we have this program and that program and do this thing and that thing. And suddenly, oh, okay, there it is. We're a family. We are a family of faith. We're a community of faith. It's actually a miracle that occurs. It's a miracle that occurs. It's God's Spirit that makes us into this kind of community. As we feel God's Spirit here, we become this community. God binds us together. God brings us together so that we can feel this kind of feeling, even as we're worshiping here and looking across at somebody we don't know, we've never seen before. But we can still feel this sense of family, this sense of closeness. How important that is. What a blessing it is, too, to be able to find in our lives, to be able to make sure that what we're seeking out as we worship each week is, quite simply, first and foremost, is a sense of God's Spirit here among us. That we feel God's Spirit moving. And it's one reason we are so blessed with our music. For that, there's no place I feel God's Spirit moving more than the kind of beautiful music that we have already heard in our 3 songs today. In so many ways, we can feel God's Spirit. We can feel it right here. And you know, God's Spirit, when it moves, and we see this in the Bible, you say, okay, well, God's Spirit's moving, I felt God's Spirit. What does that mean? Well, it is something that people saw in the Bible. They identified. In fact, it's one thing they said is, when we know the story of Pentecost, and people were all there, all the followers, all the disciples in that room, and they were all praying, and I'm sure it was wonderful. It was just lovely. They were all there, and they were praying, and I'm sure they felt, we feel close, and we feel God's Spirit. But then all of a sudden, God's Spirit came into that place. God's Spirit was there among them, just as they had been praying for, wanting it, desiring it, and suddenly it was there, and you knew it. You could tell. It changed. Why? But not because of, yes, there was a mighty wind, but it changed the way people acted. It changed what they did. Change is a big part of what the Spirit is about, what the Spirit calls us to do. When they would do a baptism, we read about it in the Bible, they'd do the baptism and people would they'd say, wow, that was a good baptism. This person was really changed. You could see the Spirit upon them. They changed. The way they acted changed. They felt called and propelled in a whole new direction. And that's something that the Spirit often does for us. It brings change, and that can be scary. Change can be difficult. I mean, we're facing a big change right now. We have now got our speaker system really all set up, all done. There's about 2 weeks worth of tweaking to do, so we are going to be moving this service over into our sanctuary here in just 3 weeks. So February 1st, we're going to be over in the sanctuary. We're going to be worshiping over there. How important that is, because if this is a family, if it's like a family, every family needs a home. Right? You have to have a home to be in. And what a wonderful home we have had here for over 10 years. Right here in our Family Life Center, being able to worship in this place. It has been a wonderful place. And I know I'm never going to be able to come into here even years and years from now and not feel like this is a holy place, a sacred place. But how much too I am looking forward to us moving over into the sanctuary, so that the same place, so we can worship the same place where we are married, and where some of us here were married. So we can worship in the same place our children are baptized. And some of us here were baptized. We can worship in the same place where we say goodbye to people who have passed away. I think the sanctuary is going to be a wonderful home for us in this community of faith. And it's going to be a great place for us to continue to grow as a family and to feel that sense of connectedness, to feel that sense of trust and love and caring. And it's going to get us ready, too, I think, to be able to express the Spirit at motion in our community in lots of different ways. I see in the year to come us having outreach events that are begun, that rise up from this service, from what we here decide to do. And so we have outreach events that we are inviting everybody in the church and all over everybody in the community to participate in, that are coming up out of this service that we can participate in together. I see us having fellowship events and having lunches maybe after church that come up from this church, from this community, having study groups here that are part of, that are made up of people here in this community. I tell you, there are so many ways that we can express, we can show God at work in this church, God in motion in our lives, and especially as we begin this transfer. And remember, there's for a family, one of the most stressful things a family can do is move. Right? One of the most stressful things a family can do is to move. Even if they're going to a wonderful new home, it's still tough, it's still difficult. So what a great opportunity this is in this month ahead for us to deal with that, or to be prepared for it, and to be prepared to show our love for one another and our care and our concern and our commitment. It's my prayer. I've experienced it here for so long now, 9 years as your minister. Experienced this family. I think we have a wonderful opportunity to feel that growing here in these months and these years to come, that sense of community, Christian community, family of faith, to be able to come together, worship together, but also through outreach and through fellowship and through study. So many wonderful opportunities. And my prayer then, and really to sum this up, is to be able to look forward and to know that in the months and the years to come, we're going to be able to continue to look around us, to look at those that we are worshiping with, and to see in them doing God's will. And to be able to say, along with Jesus Christ, here is my family. Let us bow in prayer. Loving God, we do give thanks. Lord, thank you for the blessing of this church. Thank you for this place where we have worshiped for so many years. Thank you for those who had the foresight to have this place built so that we could experience more than 10 years of wonderful worship here. Loving God, thank you for the opportunity you've given us to change and to grow. Loving God, help us to make and to take advantage and be able to take advantage of all the opportunities you are giving us. Help us to be the very best that we can be. Help us to be as close and as loving as we can possibly be. Loving God, we are getting close now to expressing our sense of family in the most important way we do here in worship, here at your table. And dear Lord, as we prepare to come to this table, we ask that you bless this bread and this cup. Lord, help us to be nourished by it. And may this time we spend together around your table provide us with this sense of Christian family. It is in your Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Well, it's one of the defining characteristics